Recently, I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, speaking at a church, and when I was done speaking, there's a woman by the name of Kim who came up to me. She's surrounded by 4 or 5 other women, and she just started to share her heart. In the past 2 years, she had been through a lot. Her husband of over 40 years had passed away from cancer, and for the first time in her life, she had to go to work. She had to find a job. So she goes out, she finds a job, she starts working this job, and really just over a year of working, and she gets fired from her job. And so in the past 2 years, she'd experienced the loss of her husband, she'd experienced having to go back into the workforce, and now she's dealing with having to pick up the pieces after being fired. And you could just see just so much fear and disappointment in her eyes. And I asked her, Kim, like, how are you doing with all this? How are you getting through this just really difficult time in your life? And she said, I could never make it through all this without all of these ladies around me. And this was her small group, the group of people who had been walking with her during this entire time. You know, writer Anne Lamott has said that the most powerful sermon in the world consists of 2 words: me too. I believe that she's onto something, because when you're struggling with a shattered dream and unmet expectations, when you're hurt or doubting, questioning and crying, there's nothing more healing than knowing that someone else has been there. I mean, when you're hurt or you're doubting, there's nothing more comforting than hearing someone say, I know what you're going through. There's nothing that helps more than just being with someone who can say, me too. You know, when other people draw near to say those words, somehow you know that they're not gonna judge you or look down upon you or lecture you. They get it. They don't have to say a word, because their simple presence is like a healing ointment to your pain. My prayer has been that you've started to experience some of that healing in your life as a result of the community that you're forming right there within your group. So many of my closest friendships today were formed in the midst of Plan B type situations. I mean, it's just amazing how quickly you can make a deep connection with another person when you share some kind of common struggle. I mean, those words, me too. I mean, it's really a description of one of God's greatest gifts, the gift of community. Dallas Willard describes it this way. He said, God's aim in human history is the creation of an all-inclusive community of loving persons with himself included as its primary sustainer and most glorious inhabitant. He is even now at work to bring this about. You have been invited at a great cost to God himself to be a part of this radiant community. You, right there in your life. But do you feel like you're a part of a radiant community right there in your life while you're struggling through this Plan B situation? Are you experiencing the comfort and the strength that Me Too can bring? See, that's the problem, isn't it? Because when you're in a Plan B, you need community more than ever, and yet you often find yourself distant, not only from God, but from other people in your life. Now, this is important, all right? Because community doesn't just happen. Many of us run from community and the intimacy that it provides because we know it requires something of us. It requires risk. It requires the risk of being vulnerable with the people around us. I'm convinced that it's largely our inability to be authentic or real with each other or with ourselves that makes it so difficult for us to recognize the gift of community that God has to offer us. I mean, the culture we live in today sets us up with so many expectations for what success looks like. Our Christian communities institute standards that no human being could ever live up to consistently. So what do? Well, all too often, I think we hide. We pretend to be something we're not. We immerse ourselves in this false reality. We may pretend to be confident even though we're scared to death. We may cover up our hurt and our pain by escaping into addictive behavior. Or we may just get in the habit of not letting anyone, including ourselves, know who we really are or what we're really struggling with. We fear this nakedness, emptiness, this hollowness of our lives so much that we dive headfirst into this pool of unreality. The trouble is, it's only in reality that God meets us, sometimes in very profound ways. And it's only in reality that we can experience true, authentic, healing community with others. So as long as we choose not to live in reality, as long as we insist on covering up our sin and denying it, as long as we keep pretending that we have it all together, we will probably keep missing the hope that community can offer us. Someone told me years ago that you can only be loved to the extent that you are known. There's so much truth in there. You know, it doesn't matter how many times you tell me that you care about me, as long as I have hidden stuff from you, my heart is gonna reject your offer of love and friendship. I'll keep thinking, if you knew the real me, you wouldn't say that. It's just a basic fact of life. We can't really experience or appreciate real community until we dare to be authentic. We can't benefit from the power of community until we dare face who we really are. I mean, there's no doubt that sometimes Christian community can be a dangerous place when your dreams shatter. I mean, Christians, just like any other sinners, can be guilty of cliche answers and untruthful promises and false expectations. You know, Christians, like other sinners, have been known to be judgmental or just simply oblivious. So if you're tempted to run away from church or just cover up your hurt while you're with other people, I can understand, but I hope you won't do that. I'd like to encourage you to fight the temptation to hide. Take the risk of sharing your authentic self whenever you possibly can. Trust that God will eventually provide you with a community that will circle around you, even if this comes from the most unlikely of places. You see, separated from community, we tend to think the worst. Separated from community, we tend to tilt towards hopelessness. And while authentic community doesn't always take away the pain that we experience in the midst of a plan B, it certainly helps us reframe the pain. The only thing worse than disappointment is disappointment without community, because it's community that can help guide you towards a hope that is anchored in our God.